Welcome and thank you for joining us. I'm Lisa Rogers and I'm working in partnership with the Education Service Center Region 6 to present a series of training modules on building positive behavior in young children with special needs. The main focus of this first module will be on classroom organization, setting up for success. The goals of this module are to create learning environments that promote positive behavior and student success, to create structured areas to promote learning and independence, and to celebrate and promote meaningful play for self-regulation. While this module has been especially developed for educators working with young children, including those with special needs, all who are interested in this topic are welcome to join. For additional resources to support the key concepts of this module, simply pause the video and jot down this link: http://bit.ly Early Learner Setup. You are free to pause the video and go to that resource now, or wait till the end of the module. Our agenda begins with a look at applied behavior analysis, followed by setting the stage, center development, special areas for special needs, and celebrating play. Let's begin. Take a moment to absorb this picture. If you were in this room, how would you feel? Would your stress level go up or down? While each of us is different, most can understand how this type of environment could cause a rise in one's stress level. And what can stress lead to? Too much stress can actually impact many aspects of our lives. When stress rises, so might irritability. Have you ever said or done something when stressed that you would never do or say when you are calm? That is just one example of how stress can impact behavior. In addition, as stress rises, the ability to focus, be patient, communicative, and social often decreases. Let's explore all the ways that teachers can decrease stress and increase success. The first critical component to decreasing stress is your classroom organization. Yes, something as fundamental as how you set up your classroom can impact stress. Through careful planning of physical spaces and how those spaces are organized, teachers can create an environment built for learning of academics, social skills, and positive behaviors. In addition, teachers help to decrease stress by breaking information down into smaller, more doable chunks, presenting information visually, incorporating student interests when possible, and meeting sensory needs. When building more positive behaviors, remember the impact of stress on your own behavior, and remember that we must decrease the stress. This is how we prevent our most challenging behaviors. One of the most fundamental principles of applied behavior analysis, or ABA, is that the most effective strategies for addressing challenging behaviors are those that primarily focus on the prevention of challenging behaviors and the promotion or the reinforcement of appropriate social behaviors. As we look at the framework of applied behavior analysis, it becomes clearly evident that for every behavior, there are antecedents, or triggers. Antecedents are those events, the actions, circumstances that occur immediately before a behavior does. For example, a child is told that it is time to clean up as center time comes to a close. But he or she is right in the middle of building the most magnificent Lego tower of all time. His behavior could be that he starts to clean up after verbally protesting a bit, or his behavior could be that he starts screaming and throwing things to protest more clearly. How can we modify the antecedent to prevent the latter from happening? That is the key to ABA, antecedent-based interventions. Antecedent-based interventions are designed to alter the environment before a behavior occurs. There are many strategies that qualify as antecedent-based interventions. The main focus of this module is on the first antecedent-based intervention, which is modifying the level or type of structure in the environment. Often a combination of several antecedent-based interventions are necessary to create a strong plan for prevention. For example, visual supports are often added when modifying the environment. Visual supports are any tool presented visually that supports an individual as he or she moves throughout the day, throughout the environment. They might include, but are not limited to, first-then boards, individual schedules, labels throughout the environment. They are used across settings to support young learners, especially those who do have a special need. In the following video, look for an additional key consideration when setting up the environment for success for young learners.
Science tells us that brains, minds, are built, not born. And at the center of this dynamic architecture are a set of skills called executive function and self-regulation.
Children's self-regulation and executive function are key ingredients in their lifetime performance. It's not just about learning language or learning numbers or learning colors.
We have to be able to work effectively with others, with distractions, with multiple demands. These actually are skills that contribute to the productivity of the American workforce.
Look at your shapes. What should you have done next?
Educators, I think, are looking for just this sort of thing. And when we describe what we mean by executive function, they say, yes, that's it. That's exactly, the problem. These kids, they can tell me these rules, but they can't actually use them.
What's this?
A toolbox.
A toolbox.
What is executive function?
Safety goggles. Probably the best way to think about it is sort of like an air traffic control system in the brain. Just like an air traffic control system has to manage lots of airplanes going on lots of runways and really exquisite timing and so on, a child has to manage a lot of information and avoid distractions. We really think of it as involving working memory and inhibitory control and mental flexibility. Take a situation where a child is having to take turns. So first of all, the child has to have inhibitory control. The child has to be able to stop whatever he or she is doing and let the other child take a turn.
Cute.
But when it's your turn again, you also have to remember what it is you're supposed to be doing. So that pulls on working memory. If the children who are taking the turns after you do something unpredictable, you have to be able to adjust what you're going to do next. And that requires mental flexibility. Children who are struggling with these capacities often look like children who just aren't paying attention, or children who are deliberately not controlling themselves.
If you don't have self-regulation, you act out and the teacher puts you in timeout, and so then you miss part of the learning that's going on, and then you are more upset because you're behind, and so you act out, and so you get this downward spiral.
How does executive function develop?
7, and +4.
In little children, and even in the infant and toddler years, you begin to see the roots of executive functioning skills. What's going on in our brains is unbelievably intricate and complicated.
The prefrontal cortex, or the front third of the brain, is important for executive function. But it's more than just prefrontal cortex. This region doesn't act alone. It's involved in controlling your behavior through its interactions with all other parts of the brain. The brain goes from a situation where you've got nearest neurons communicating very strongly with each other and ignoring the rest of the brain, to these widespread networks that are connecting these different areas. Executive function changes over the life course. It improves radically over the first few years.
I got a match brand.
It continues to improve throughout adolescence. It's not until early adulthood that you have the adult-type networks that are very strongly activated that connect different brain regions together.
Let's take notes.
Also, we believe that executive functions can be trained.
It's just like going to the gym. So the more you practice in these areas, the stronger the capacity is likely to become because you're helping to strengthen those neural connections.
You're at 24.
Slowly but surely, you're going to be able to step back, and that child's going to go into the world with these skills where they can get along with other people, change rules, and they can be flexible, and they can accomplish new things, and they're unafraid.
I got bit by my dog in my arm. Oh dear.
If we don't learn these skills during the childhood and adolescent years when they're coming online, we are really ill-equipped as an adult to hold a job, to maintain a marriage, to raise children, to get along with each other, to basically be part of a civil society.
You're okay.
That's right. The additional key consideration when setting up the classroom for success is play. And not just any play, but make-believe or pretend play is the key to developing executive function skills. Children who are able to manage their feelings and pay attention are better able to learn. Self-regulation predicts effective development in virtually every domain. So it's not just playing, is it? Let's carry this research on play forward and connect it with the research that indicates that the structure of the classroom environment paired with planned instruction supports the development of social emotional skills as well as preventing behavioral issues. Therefore, an environment that is structured for purposeful and meaningful play is a winning combination for developing social emotional skills while also preventing those behavioral challenges. And in the spirit of structure, let's check off our agenda now that we have reviewed the key principles of applied behavior analysis, prevention, and antecedent-based interventions. Building on the learning so far, we will now shift our focus to setting the stage for learning and positive behaviors in the classroom. The first step in setting up the stage begins with the students. Student needs. Their characteristics will determine the type of areas needed and the level of structure needed for student success and independence. For students with special needs, the Individual Education Plan or IEP will also provide key information. In the following video, pay special attention to all the ways that the teacher plans for purposeful and meaningful play in an environment built for young learners.
Standing straight and tall, my hands are behind my back, I'm ready for the hall. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, zip.
This is their first experience in school for the most part. A lot of them have been in daycare or some sort of childcare setting, but then when they come to public school, it's just different.
Can you take me to a party? Sure. Can you drive? Yes.
In my classroom, I use a project approach to learning, and I let the kids guide the curriculum. What do you think of that idea?
Good.
I think that it's more important for the children to determine what the curriculum is so that they stay engaged. If they're not engaged, then I spend my day managing behavior versus letting them be able to discover and explore and construct their own knowledge of something.
How do I put this picture on?
We spend a lot of time learning what patience is and waiting because life is full of waiting. And so I draw their stick with their name on it, and then I ask them to tell me where they're going to play. Sean, where would you like to play?
I didn't know that you bought my stick.
Where would you like to play? With these? Okay. That holds them accountable. That is them saying, I'm going to go play in the dough. So they know if they're going to go to the sensory table and play in the dough, that like they've claimed that spot. They're going there, they've claimed their play.
This is a big wedding cake.
Yeah.
Someone's ready.
The materials I bring in are mostly natural materials. They're open-ended in the fact that they're not task-oriented, because I want them to be able to explore those materials and use them for as long as possible instead of just having a specific task set to it, like a puzzle. Once the puzzle's done, nothing to do, move on. Those tools that they use in everyday life automatically give them a sense of responsibility and trust. And respect. So they can see that I respect them enough to use adult tools. We have safety procedures to use them safely. So if they're going to get out hammers and things like that, then they need to have their safety glasses on.
I'm going to pass around this owl, and if you have the owl, you can share.
Share times, we do it at least 2 times a day. That gives me an idea of who's following who. I get to see a lot in classroom dynamics and relationships during those little times like that.
And if anybody has the owl, only they can talk.
That's right, because that helps us remember that we need to be respectful and listen to people share their story, right?
6 or 5 weeks from now, my Mimi's gonna open up her pool and we can go, and me and my brother and Daddy and Katie and Charlotte can go swim in it. My sister fell off the slide when she was a baby. My daddy, he got hit by lightning when he was a little boy.
Really?
No, not yet.
I try to take an alternate activity outside. I just kind of looked on the playground at the students who weren't really engaged. They see me over there, they know that I'm doing something, so if they want to come over, they know they can. But most will choose to play. It's just different on different days. And also depends what the activity is.
I'm done.
I'm going to squirt a cloud on top. Do you want a big cloud?
Yeah.
Try not to get it in my coffee.
I want a big cloud.
This is sort of my way of doing an assessment. And so instead of sitting down or clicking on bubbles on the computer screen to answer questions, I do my assessments like this.
What's the job of a cloud?
He makes it rain.
I was kind of looking for oral language, what they could tell me, what words they were using. We had just started talking about clouds, so this was all very new, but I wanted to see if they were using any weather vocabulary that we had talked about. Because what?
Because God wants it to rain so the flowers can grow.
Okay. All right, so here's what we're going to do. I wanted to see if they were gathering any information and using those context clues to kind of make a different analysis of what happened with a cloud and water. How many drops do you think you'll put in before it rains? 5? The level of learning is so much deeper if they construct their knowledge with that.
It's time to start cleaning up our centers.
We hope that the things we're doing build their self-confidence and get them those social emotional skills that they need to go on and collaborate and work together in kindergarten.
Hip, hip, hooray!
Thank you.
What a wonderful example of children learning through child-centered activities and teachers teaching and assessing in child-centered ways. Setting the stage for this to occur involves 3 key elements. The first being clearly defined areas and building these areas through the use of furniture, partitions, carpets, tape on the floor, other visuals. Once you have your key areas, then we make sure that they are clearly labeled. And within each of those clearly labeled areas, the materials are also well organized. These are our classroom organization fundamentals. While each of these centers are all reading centers, they each look a little bit different. The one thing that they all have in common is that they have clearly defined areas with labels and well-organized materials. Can you tell which examples are from a self-contained classroom and which are from an inclusive classroom? If you said no, that's the idea. Whether you teach in a self-contained setting or an inclusive setting, it will always be important to establish clear boundaries to indicate where the different spaces begin and end. Having a clear understanding of the behavioral expectations of each area helps the child to self-regulate and act accordingly. Think of the different rooms in your own house and how each one has different activities and behaviors that go along with them. After all, have you ever cooked a meal in your bedroom? So what areas will you need and how many? For example, you might need one area for large group experiences and 2 or 3 areas for small group activities, along with several stations or centers. For students with special needs, special areas might be necessary, such as an independent work area, a break area, or even a calming corner for self-regulation. As we said before, this will all depend on the number and needs of your children. A calming corner might be necessary to help young children learn how to self-regulate and handle big feelings. When young children do not know how to identify emotions, handle disappointment, anger, real feelings, or develop relationships with peers, a teacher's best response is to teach. So it will be important to make sure that the calming corner or chill zone is not a punitive strategy, but rather a safe place to learn a new alternative strategy. Rather, think of the calming corner or chill zone as a time in. Time in a safe place. Time in a place to minimize sights, sounds, and even people. Time in a place to use calming strategies and how to learn to manage my own emotions. The goal is to support, to guide students to de-escalate and self-regulate. Some students might struggle with making the transition to the calming corner, especially at the beginning of implementation. When it is difficult to have a student go to the calming corner tools can go to the student. Think of portable calming boxes. Thinking of your own classroom space and the needs of your students, you will want to decide how many centers you have and the size of those centers. There is no right or wrong number of centers. Make sure that there is enough room that children can be engaged without feeling crowded. Another consideration is the location of the centers. Centers with high activity levels, such as block centers, dramatic play areas, or even music centers, should be located away from centers with quieter types of activities, such as listening, reading, and even computer. Also, keep in mind that all children need to be visible to the adults and adults visible to the children. This not only ensures proper supervision, but also creates a sense of belonging and safety for all. Remember to create cozy, private spaces where children can retreat, to rest, to observe, to recharge emotionally throughout the day. This is something we all need. What about outdoor centers? Can we extend our learning to the outdoors? Should we? Given that there are many benefits of outdoor play for children with special needs, the answer is a resounding yes. It improves so many key skills, from coordination and motor skills to self-esteem, social skills that lead to better behavior, just improving overall health. And think of how this can also increase attention span and problem-solving skills. And once again, let's look at the idea of stress. Playing outside actually lowers stress. And remember, we must decrease the stress.
It's a privilege to be able to take the children outside and to really get to know the whole child and to teach the whole child.
I need ones like 8. We're going to need about 2 more. 2, and we need more than Daddy to
When we take children outside to learn in nature using loose parts, it really allows me to see my students for their whole being, who they are, and it allows me to understand their needs in a very different context than the regular classroom.
So where are we going? Okay, so we're going where Jack. Okay, the time cone's going here.
I think the idea is to just foster this sense of creativity in the children. So when we're going outside, we use a lot of natural materials. So sticks would be considered loose parts, tree cookies, stumps, planks, scarves.
We can tie that end to there, and then we can do the other end to there. Like, that's the TV. This is my house.
Our children today are living this really hurried life, and very rarely do they have time and space to engage in free play that isn't directed by adults.
No.
And I think it kind of leads to maybe more critical thinking, more creativity, more imagination, because you're kind of forcing them. They're in the driver's seat, they're deciding what they're going to do with those parts.
Yeah, I think you need more gas. Get some gas. Gas station. I see one right over there. Pull in there. Wait. We lost the tire. Okay. Cooper, go fix the tire. It's in the back.
There's a lot of construction going on, so they like to construct things, like they like to make huts or shelters, or houses are a big thing.
We built these blocks and then big blocks, and that's part of the house.
Loose parts are very affordable. Oftentimes they're found objects or donated objects such as tarps or kitchenware.
We're using different materials, and we're figuring out which to use and how to make the different things. So we're learning that way. That's the bed. So, the blanket.
Sometimes in the classroom you'll have students who are really reluctant to share or even raise their hand. When we go outside and we're using loose parts, it's amazing to see how these reluctant speakers seem to come alive.
And ducks and vampires. Hey, you just said vampires and butterflies. I saw an ant spider over here.
No way! What is an ant spider?
They're parts of spider.
It's part ant, part spider?
But where is it now? It disappeared.
We see sometimes a whole new side of a child come out when we're outside.
You'll see students counting, you'll see students creating small play. There are so many ways the curriculum ties into this type of experiential learning. What we are hoping by going outside with our students on our playground is that students will develop a connection to nature that will be lifelong.
In a lot of ways, they're our future. They're the ones who are going to be making decisions about the world that we're going to be living in. And I think it's important that they have a connection to nature, that they care about nature. Sometimes when we go back to using simpler things, when we go back to basics, there's a deeper impact.
So many possibilities for learning outside. Be creative, have fun, and let the natural environment set the stage. A great way to connect the classroom learning to outdoor learning is to introduce prop boxes or bins or new materials at the morning meeting or large group times. Time to check off our agenda once again as we look more closely at center development. The LEGO Foundation, in support of UNICEF, has published a brief titled Learning Through Play. In this brief, there are key points of why learning through play builds lifelong learners and supports children's overall development. It also notes the obstacles that advocates of young learners may face when making a case for play-based instruction, and offers a systems perspective in advocating for child-centered pedagogy and playful programs. Once you have created your clearly defined areas, it is now time to label those areas in a way that your students will understand best. In this inclusive classroom, you see a very large label with a clear graphic and simple words stated in children's terms. While some students need this a little less and others a little more, it simply helps all students be more successful in navigating their environment. The block area and learning. What are all the different types of materials that you might place in this area to promote active and engaging learning experiences? Think of these key skills: making different patterns, creating a structure and counting how many pieces have been used, making signs to add to your creation, creating a structure and drawing it out, creating an incline and rolling items like balls or cars down the incline. Predict how far you think they will go and then measure the distance. I just heard math, reading, writing, science, all of these happening in the key area of block play. While you may have a dedicated book or library center, literacy can be incorporated throughout all centers by carefully placing books or literacy prop boxes or bags. A book with hands-on items to make the book come alive can also be introduced during large or small group times before placing it in the center to promote student interest. Yikes! What am I supposed to do here? Remembering the connection between organization and stress, having well-organized materials within each center or area is another important consideration. By simply labeling the shelves and materials, children have a clearer idea of what to play and work with and where things belong. This makes cleanup time a much more successful transition for all. There are so many ways to organize and label shelves and materials. In this example, you will notice that the teacher took great care to place a copy of the book cover on the shelf, making very clear where each book belongs. Here you will notice the use of tape for outlines in addition to photographs of those materials. In this similar example, you see a colored outline along with the photograph of the item. Notice the authentic items. Real things can be novel and often more motivating for children. So save those cereal boxes, old scarves, and shoe boxes for a more authentic and motivating experience. Here we see how a hot glue gun and the actual object can make for a very concrete way to label materials. We can also help create a world with meaning with simple outlines. And remember to include literacy when possible to create a world with meaning and promote literacy. Once you have your centers clearly defined with clear labels and well-organized materials, you are ready to launch children off to meaningful and purposeful play that will teach academic, social, emotional, and communication skills. By taking just a few moments to have the students make a plan and indicate where they want to start out at center time, you will see an increase in self-regulation and an increase in the likelihood that children will engage more successfully during center activities. For children that have limited or no communication skills, you might have them point to, circle, or even place an object on the center of their choice. Time to check off our agenda as we have completed the critical considerations for center development. Let's explore some additional special areas for children with special needs. Children with special needs may benefit from environmental accommodations such as alternative seating, having their own individual workspace, proximity to the teacher. In addition, the use of headphones, special lighting, quiet seating may support a variety of sensory needs. Some students may benefit from a bit more support in meeting their sensory needs through a sensory room. Occupational therapists bring a wealth of expertise and knowledge in setting up a sensory room that is built to meet specific student sensory needs. Let's take a closer look at the small group or work with teacher area. By having a specific area designated for work that involves a teacher who is providing direct instruction to 1 or 2 students, the child understands the expectations when at this area. When I am here, I will be working with a teacher and I will be learning new or emerging skills. This is where the teacher may also focus on individual education plan goals such as communication, instructional, behavioral, or social goals. In contrast, a work alone area is set up for independence and success on skills that have already been mastered. The work alone or independent area is often less stressful for children in that there are no social requirements by a teacher, and the work is familiar with prior success. When setting up a work alone area, a work system will add to more success and less stress. A work system should answer the following questions for a student. What work do I do? How much work do I do? When am I finished? And maybe most importantly, what do I do next? In this example, we see that a student is expected to complete 3 activities, the 3 that are located near the numbers, and when they are gone, they are finished. And now I have a 5-minute break. That is what I'm looking forward to. In this example, the student is expected to complete 4 activities with, again, a motivating activity to look forward to, and in this case, it's playing with dinosaurs. How can we add even more motivation to the work system? Here we see that this work system is decorated with birds. This reflects a student's strong interests. By incorporating interests, we not only increase motivation, but we actually decrease stress. While some students can simply return their finished work to the shelf or bin, others benefit greatly from a finished box. The finished box is just that, a box or bin where finished activities are placed. It is typically clearly labeled at the right side of the work alone area, making for a left to right progression from work to finish. The way that the task or work is organized is another level of structure that many students with special needs or executive functioning difficulties benefit from. As you look at these 2 different examples of a structured activity, do you have an idea of what you should do with these materials just by looking at the cues? What would you say are the key features of these structured activities? We have a finished model on the left. We have the parts in the middle box. And we have an arrow that indicates that these parts are to be put on this Mr. Potato Head. So I think we agree that we have a very clear organization of the materials. There's a very clear beginning and end. We understand the expectations by virtue of the example. And we always want to try to make a connection to not only the grade level TEKS, but also to student individual education plan goals. In this next video, you will see a young man with special needs at his work alone area with a work system and structured activities. This video is part of a training event, and so there are many adults in the video observing and collecting data on different students. Keep in mind that this student was known for his oppositional defiant behavior. Think of how you would describe this student as you watch him in action.
You want the chair?
Almost time to go. Almost finished, okay?
Instead of oppositional defiant, how would you describe the young man in the video? Focused? On task? Engaged? And yes, independent. This very young learner with special needs was able to be focused, on task, engaged, and independent in spite of the many adults surrounding him. This is the power of visual structure and supports that help students be successful. We are ready to apply our knowledge to real-life scenarios. You have 3 activities that you want your student to complete during a specific work with teacher time. The student understands how to match numbers, colors, and shapes. The student is also interested in spinning objects. We have seen a work system at a work alone area, but can you implement a work system at the work with teacher area to help the student understand what they are to do and what will happen after they are finished with their tasks? If you said absolutely, you are correct. Notice the work with teacher label at this area. As a matter of fact, modeling and using a work system at the work with teacher area is a good way to introduce and teach how to follow the work system. You're doing great, so let's try another real-life scenario. You have one activity that you want your student to complete during this work with teacher time. The student does understand how to match numbers and has an interest in balls. Think of what kind of work system you could create to help the student understand what they are to do and what will happen after they are finished with their task. Did you envision something similar to this example? Or possibly even a first then board? If you did, once again, you are correct. In this last real-life scenario, what is missing in this work system? Did you say, I don't know what comes next after I finish my work? If you did, then you are now a work system pro. This is such an important part of the work system to increase motivation and provide positive reinforcement after completing tasks. Taking all the knowledge from this module, you are ready to build a classroom design for student success academically, socially, and behaviorally. And for a veteran teacher with more experience, perhaps you have been validated and found 1 or 2 key ideas to add to your treasure trove of wonderful strategies. Great teachers, after all, are always looking to become greater. As we come to the close of this module, It is now time to celebrate the power of play for young learners, especially those with special needs. On behalf of the Education Service Center at Region 6, I would like to thank you for joining us and thank you for all that you do for young children, who, after all, are our best hope for a brighter future. For additional support, please contact your district special education department or Pam Bumpus, the Early Childhood Special Education Specialist. It has been my pleasure to spend this time with you, and now it is time to play.